Good day, you lot. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Thought let's have a little chat about throttles and how to set your throttle with a Nitro car, because a lot of people seem to have trouble setting the right throttle, how to set the linkages up. I always get questions saying, when I'm not touching the controller, the car's revving up and it wants to go by itself. Well, it's because it's not set up properly, and it's extremely simple to set it up. But sometimes you just need a little bit of guidance to set you on the right path. That is the aim of this video. Now, don't even think about skipping past this talking bit, because everything that I'm saying to you is got an element of relevance to what we're doing. Now, I wish I could just say to you, do this, exactly this, copy me exactly, and you'll have your car perfect. That's not going to happen. That's not possible, because every single car is different. Even if you've got a Rush, HPI Rush Evo, you could still follow what I do and it will be different, because every car is different. So, I mean, I can't stress that enough. I get people ask me questions. They send me a message, a PM on Instagram, because that's the main way that people contact me. And they say, when I'm not touching the transmitter, the car's revving up. The wheels are going round, it's revving up, it wants to go by itself. Right? There's so many things that could be causing that. The trim could be off, yeah? Just a simple trim on your transmitter could be off. You could have one of your linkages. There's the linkages there. Around here. Go around here. Right. There's a throttle linkage. Get out of the way, you bloody antenna. There's a throttle linkage, look. That there. Going onto the throttle arm, which is on the carburetor. Now, it could be the wrong length. The servo horn could be in the wrong place. You know, so on these carburetors, this is mainly for these rotisserie style carbs. The ones that have got the slide carbs like this, the principle is the same, but the method is different, because obviously you've got different carburetor. But we can talk about that later on, perhaps in another video, or in this one, I'm not really sure yet. So if that little nut on the end there, what holds that in place, is loose, that will move by itself, or if it's just in the wrong place. So it needs to be adjusted, and the way you adjust it is simply play around. Turn on your radio gear, see where you are, set your trim on your transmitter, set it to 0, yeah, 0, very important, set it to 0. No point in having it on plus or minus anything, set it to 0, and then have a look to see where your throttle is. Now, my one is actually not too bad. That's actually set. I don't think we're getting full throttle, mind you, but it's set to. It will go to tick over. But if it's moving when it's on, if it goes, so that's tick over. If that goes when you turn on the transmitter, if it goes there when you're not touching the transmitter, then you're pulling throttle without touching it. So that means. And if your trim is on 0, that means that you've got a linkage wrong, or the servo horn is in the wrong place. So what you need to do, very, very simply, pop off that little, whatever you want to call that, the end of it, pop it off, and this has got a thread on it. So you can turn this to lengthen it, because that's what you want to do. You want to lengthen it to make it go to tick over. Remember, this is on 0 now. And then, if you've lengthened it as far as you can go, you need to play around. Can you take off the servo horn and put that to a place where it's on tick over, and then put it back down again? As long as your servo is set to 0, it's in the middle of its range, yeah? Because you don't want it set over there somewhere, because then when you do it, it's not going to be right. You need it set to 0. Then you set the horn to tick over. And then you can go from there, because then you might have tick over, but you might not be getting full throttle. That's the trouble I've got at the moment. I'm pretty sure if I can take off this air filter. So at the moment we've got tick over. See, there's no gap there at all. And if I pull full throttle, yeah, we're not quite getting full throttle. See, it's not quite open all the way. That's interesting. Got a bit of a gap there as well. Oh, that's not right. Well, I've got a different problem with this carburetor, which I didn't even know that I had. You see there's a little gap in the corner there. Well, that shouldn't be there. So we'll have to address that later on, but we'll, we'll sort that out later on. That's nothing to do with this video. That's a problem I've got that I didn't even know I had. So anyway, not quite getting full throttle. So what I'm going to do in my case is I'm going to pop that off and I'm going to shorten this linkage here by turning this clockwise, and that should still give me a tick over and full throttle, hopefully. Right, so it couldn't get any simpler how to do this, right? You literally get a pair of long nose pliers or a screwdriver or something, right? And all you got to do is just pop that off of there. This one's been popped off many times, so it's quite easy to do. And what I want to do, oh, see that's come off of there completely now. All I want to do is I want to turn mine clockwise because I want to make mine shorter, but you might need to make yours longer. I don't know. The only person who knows that is you, and I can't stress that enough. I really can't stress that enough. The only person who knows what you got to do is you. There's no point in asking me. There's no point in asking anyone else because they won't know. You're the one with the car in front of you. So now we've still got. Well, we've got a little bit of a problem there now, but I've got to sort that carburetor out. But now we've got full throttle. That is full throttle now. I don't know whether you probably can't bloody see in there, can you? Jesus. Right, I'll have to get you off the bloody tripod again. Hang about. Right. So now, ignore the hole. We've got. It moves a little bit when I do the brakes, so I'm going to sort that out in a minute. But now we've got full throttle, see? We've got full gap. That is full throttle. That is exactly what we want. I think the reason why I've got... Yeah, that ain't right at all. That shouldn't be... That hole in the side there shouldn't be there. Something's happened to that. I might have to put a different carburetor on it. I didn't even know I had that problem. Anyway, we'll work away with that later on. So... Now, to solve that problem of it going like that, so that's on brakes, off brakes, we're getting a little bit more movement. It shouldn't move when I come off the brakes. The throttle there, that should stay still when I come off of the brakes. Now, there's a couple of ways I can mend this. If I'm being a bit lazy, what I could do is I could just get my trim and I could... Oh, it was already all the way that way. Well, I've gone against my own rule, look. Right, let's set that to 0 now. And now we've got a big problem. Now we've got a massive problem. See, look, see now, that, my friends, is a perfect example. A perfect example of what not to do, what I've done there. I told you lot to set your trim to 0. I thought mine was at 0, but I didn't double check it, and it turns out it wasn't to 0. So now, that is brilliant that that's happened, because it's a good example of what happens if you don't do it. So now I didn't set it to 0. Now, I've made an adjustment, but the adjustment I've made is completely wrong, because look how much throttle we've got. That's on what should be tick over. If I put the brakes on, that tells you just how much movement we've now got. So now what I need to do is go back and undo what I've done by making that longer again. And we should be back to where we were, but with the trim that is at 0. Right, so I did it a little bit lazily, and I've moved the trim to 11, which means now we've got full tick over when I do the brakes, but it doesn't move. But we've also got full throttle. That is a full throttle right there. And what I've done is to show you, just in case it was nothing to do with this video, but just in case some of you were wondering about the little gap that I was talking about in the corner there, that little dark triangle. This, I've got this carburetor off of a different engine. So this is the carb off of the engine. And what you can do is you can pull these out like that. Now, that little slit there is what we're looking at. Just part of that there. Now it's because it's upside down, so the other side hasn't got it. Okay, so that should be the top, that should be the bottom. Obviously I didn't realise it. Maybe I put that in, maybe someone else did, I don't know, because this engine's a second-hand engine. That is upside down. So all I've got to do is take the carb off turn it around the right way, put it back on again, and that is that mended. But just in case you were wondering, that's what that is. I know there probably might have been some of you thinking to yourselves, I wonder what that is. Why is it like that? Is it broken? Well, this is why. And that's what the carb looks like off. Anyway, so that, I'm hoping that has helped you. Like I say, this is just a guide. It's not, you must do this, you must do that. It's a guide to say this is what you need to kind of do to get it to be where you want it. So you just have to play around. You can undo that screw, set your trim to 0, undo that screw, lift off the servo horn and push it so that this is on tick over, and then put it back on the sponge and do it up. You can do that. You can play with the lengths, play with the trim. You've got to get it so that when you're not touching it, you're on tick over. When you push the brakes like that, it doesn't open up the throttle. I know there's a lot of play in the linkage. I know that. It's old. Right. That's what you need to do. And in case anyone's got that problem where you've got the loose linkage there, that can pop off. And if that pops off, you've lost control. Now what I normally do is put an elastic band or a cable tie around that. And that fixes that. It stops it from coming off. Or just buy a new linkage. And then you want it, so when you pull the throttle, yeah, you get full throttle. Oh, for some reason that's not quite doing, well, it is doing full throttle. I thought it wasn't. There you go, full throttle. It just looks like it's not if you look at it from that direction, but it is. You get full throttle, and when you let go of it, without pushing any brakes, it goes back to tick over. That's what you want. So that's what you're aiming to get when you're playing around. So there's nothing else I can do. There's nothing more that I can do or say to help you out. You need to use your brain. You need to use your common sense. You need to just have a bit of patience. If you can't set that up, you need to rethink what you're doing. Go and do something else, because that's one of the most simplest things to set up. Just patience, sit down, have a look at it, play with it, and then you'll get it right. So thanks for watching. I'll see you lot on the next one. If it helped you, think about subscribing. It'll help me out if you did. And I'll see you later on. All the best, you lot. Take care. Treat people nice. That's the key.